We've got a quorum on.
One, there's
here
two
and
on Zoom.
one on Zoom.
Okay.
Claire, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, can you start the meeting?
Oh, yes. I apologize. I don't have the agenda in front of me. I assume that I need to call the meeting to order at 5:04 today. And if my memory serves me correctly, we're going right into election of new chair. And do we have a vice chair for this committee?
Yes, we have a vice chair.
Okay.
Claire, would it be helpful to get the agenda emailed to you?
Nope. I'm working on it.
Okay, all right. We can do that.
Oh, I apologize. I see the agenda. Yes, let's do introductions starting in the room.
I'll start. I'm Gloria Butch. I'm the finance director, and I believe that I'm serving now as the budget officer.
I'm Jonathan Ellis. I'm retired. Pulled back. But
Service here.
yeah, so retired finance director for you. And contractor for assisting.
Which we whoever did. Thank you so much for being here to bring back and on. I'm John Walsh. I'm the city administrator and actually technically the budget officer. Gloria and I have been only because she's new and so we're changed by the time we're done, but it's really a title. We've all been a team sport here working on it.
My name is Brady Pram and I'm a new member.
Patrick Berkeley, city council member.
Eddie Dunton, new member of the budget committee.
Lou Mason, this is my second year on the budget committee.
Brandon Sunding, city councilor.
And we have several staff here. Did you want introductions for those?
We can skip staff and we'll get to staff during that portion of the meeting. Let's see who else is on the phone. Michelle?
Michelle Damas, budget committee, third year, yeah, 2 or 3.
And Councillor Chilton.
Hi, Jessica Chilton, Council President for St. Helens.
It looks like those are all of the budget committee members. I'm Claire Catt, the current outgoing chair for the budget committee. Have we missed anyone, John?
I think you had everybody in the room, so.
Great, thanks. Perfect. So next agenda item is election of a chair and vice chair. I would open the floor for nominations.
Claire, would you like to be chair again?
Thanks for asking. I am feeling pretty overwhelmed with personal and professional stuff right now, hence not being in the room with you today. So I feel like it would do the committee really well for someone that had more capacity to be the chair for this budget year.
So Michelle, I think you're kind of senior too. You've been on a few years. I would like to nominate Michelle as chair.
I too am pretty overwhelmed and maybe in the South for 6 months, so. And not the south of Oregon.
I would nominate Lou as the chair.
Nominate the rookie. I'll do it.
Did you hear that, Claire?
Well.
I heard a nomination for Lou and a affirmative that he feels like he's well equipped to do that. Is that correct?
Yes.
There's
Great,
the
thanks.
act of whoever's not in the room gets appointed, right?
So I heard a nomination for Lou for the chair of the committee. Do we need to accept other nominations or is that our nomination? Hearing no other,
The vice chair, right? Or maybe currently vice chair, correct?
hearing no other nominations, can we take a vote for Lou to serve as our chair for the 2023 budget year?
Aye.
And those of us on the phone, I'm an aye. Michelle?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. For ease of facilitation, Lou, could you take it over from here?
Could you continue the meeting this time? Can you finish the meeting, Claire?
Oh, I will do my best. It's a little bit challenging remotely, but let's go ahead and open up for nominations for vice chair.
Would you be willing to serve as vice chair, Claire?
Yes, I would.
I would nominate Claire as vice chair.
Any other nominations or volunteers? Let's go ahead and do a vote for myself, Claire, as the vice chair for this upcoming budget year,
Aye.
All in favor? Aye.
Michelle, aye.
Jessica, aye.
Claire, aye. Okay, let's take a look at our budget committee minutes. The last time we met, dated July 13th, 2022. Any discussion needed? If no discussion is needed, I take a motion to approve these minutes as written.
I make a motion to approve them as submitted, read.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion needed? I heard a motion in a second. Let's take a vote in the room. And then on the phone, yeah, signify by aye. That's easier also for those of us that are hearing online. Those in favor, please say aye.
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 Great, thanks so much. I'm an aye as well.
I will abstain. I was not here last week. So.
Thank you, Brady. Okay, we're ready to hear our budget message.
Okay, so traditionally, in my past, I've read the budget message. For the sake of time, we could skip that or I could do it, and it's entirely up to you. Want to hear their budget message? And you know, those of you that haven't got food yet, go ahead and grab some food and while I read. So greetings, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate your time and really appreciate all of you. So the budget message for fiscal year 2024. We are pleased to present the 2023-2024 City of St. Helens proposed annual budget. This year's budget process has proven exceptionally challenging with many difficult decisions ahead to maintain the city's financial health. The city is not immune to economic challenges facing high inflation, the competitive labor market, and increasing costs for materials and supplies. These conditions have increased the city's operating costs with limited ability to increase revenues. The federal ARPA stimulus funds helped the city through the COVID pandemic. Were appreciated, but will be depleted in the coming year, and the city will need to adjust accordingly. A strong note of caution is warranted in the coming year to ensure the long-term financial health of our community. Staff has strived to present a balanced budget whereby anticipated expenses align with the projected revenues while funding the city's desired services throughout the community. The fiscal reality is that there is more demand for services than available funding, and the city must prioritize its resources to achieve the highest outcomes. As in previous years, this proposed budget is constructed upon a platform of sustainability with a strong desire to increase service levels to our community. The City Council has expressed strong support for maintaining 24-hour policing and the construction of a new public safety facility scheduled to be completed in mid-2025. Staff is proposing an increase in the $3 public safety fee to achieve these goals. Advancements on the riverfront development and progress with the city's industrial business park continue to move forward and will help build a safe and bright economic outlook for the city. This is an exciting time to be a part of the city of St. Helens community. The following is a summary of changes for the 2023-2024 budget. For the general fund, the general fund is anticipating an increase of 4% in resources, which is attributed to one-time revenue shown in general fund of ARPA funds and grants. Removal of these funds means that the general fund is budgeted to see an average 2.6 increase in continual resources over the next 5 years. Expenses within the general fund are budgeted at an overall increase of 10.5% over the previous year. Combining all this information essentially means that in the proposed budget for the next fiscal year, the city will operate at a 5% deficit. To alleviate that deficit, the city is using the available general fund reserves to create a balanced budget. This pushes against the fund balance reserve policy of 20%. This budget proposes to increase public safety fees to $9 per month. Resources within the general fund. Over the next 2 years, the city is scheduled to see some major changes in the resources of the general fund. ARPA fund grant funds will be used up by 2024-2025, and the city council will be faced with funding the new public safety facility. This loss of one-time revenue coupled with the construction debt will require new revenue sources in order to maintain the city's long-term financial fiscal health. Expenses within the general fund, as previously noted, expenses within the general fund are proposed to increase 10.5% over the prior year. These assumptions include a 5% COLA adjustment for ASME, that's our union, and unrepresented, and 6% for the police association employees, and other higher than anticipated inflationary increases in insurance, materials, and professional services. Projecting future revenues and expenses is challenging as there are many external forces impacting the city. The forecast, particularly in future years, assumes a modest 1% growth in materials and services within all general fund departments and a 3% growth in personnel services. Personnel services include not only wages, but insurance and retirement benefits. Oregon PERS retirement updates rate expectations for all jurisdictions every 2 years. In December 2024, the city will know what to expect for the next 2 years of PERS rates. If wages, PERS, and insurance collectively rise above the estimated 3% growth factor, the forecasted ending fund balance, which is the purple bars in the graph, will deplete reserves more rapidly and stress the city's financial condition. Ending fund balance and reserves, the city's adopted financial policies strive to maintain a minimum reserve fund balance of 20% in the general fund. And we also try to maintain that in our other operating funds on the side. This policy is indicated in the graph as the yellow line. Based on the model, the city is projected to drop below the policy and without adjustments will eventually exhaust the fund. It is imperative that the city make the necessary adjustments to align revenues with expenditures to maintain the long-term fiscal health of our community. The special revenue funds, the tourism program funding will continue to be held in the tourism fund with the noted change in the events management contractor business model, which started in fiscal year 2023. The city will continue to receive transient room fees revenues into the fund along with other dedicated and reserved revenues. The events productions will be managed by the third-party contractor, where the contractor will manage the day-to-day operations of the program, including financial management. The contractor will be responsible to produce income and expense reports to the city, and the program will be subject to an annual financial audit. This change has reduced and will continue to reduce the administrative burden on city staff and streamline the contractor's ability to manage the program. For community development, this fund holds the city's community and economic development projects, including the industrial park activities, central waterfront development, riverfront development, and the forestry program. The fund will see a large influx of funding from grants and loans in relation to continued development of the riverfront property, industrial business park, and the central waterfront. Community enhancement will continue to be used for grant appropriations for specific departments such as the library, parks, recreation, and others. This fund is used to help track grants and resources outside of the general fund. In streets with limited funding available, the street department projects will be limited to general street maintenance and one sidewalk, curb, and gutter project in partnership with the county and ODOT in the upcoming year. SDC funds we collect systems development charges, which are SDCs, to offset the growth impacts on our utilities and public facilities for streets, water, sewer, storm, and parks. Not all projects are SDC eligible, and the master planning process identifies which projects are or are not eligible. Within the capital improvement plan portion of the budget document, you will find SDC eligible projects projected over the next 5 years. The most notable project anticipated in the next fiscal year will be continued improvements to Columbia View Park along the riverfront property. Parks SDC funds are anticipated to be used to assist funding improvements to this park along with other riverfront improvement projects anticipated this fiscal year. And enterprise funds consist of the water fund. In order to meet the needs of the city's drinking water program, rates will need to be adjusted each year, fiscal year 2027. The proposed budget includes a rate adjustment of 3% for fiscal year 2023-2024. These rates are a result of an updated water master plan that identified new capital projects that are reflected in the 5-year capital improvement plan. Some capital projects noted in the master plan have been deferred intentionally to reduce the burden and maintain a positive cash flow balance over the forecasted 5-year period. Annual maintenance costs also have been reduced to preserve fund balance over the next 5 years. For the sewer fund, in order to meet the needs of the city's sanitary sewer program, rates will need to be adjusted each year to fiscal year 2027. The proposed budget includes a sewer rate adjustment of 8% for fiscal year 2024. The city recently updated its wastewater master plan and identified many deficiencies in the collection system. In an effort to minimize the burden to ratepayers, the city is working to prioritize the greatest system deficiencies and defer other lower priority projects to future years. This coming year, the city will continue to address a $10.4 million sewer main upsizing project located in a basin that is currently over capacity, and a second $4.9 million upsizing project in 24-25. The anticipation of related debt issuance has been incorporated into the rate assumptions. For the storm fund, in order to meet the needs of the city's stormwater program, rates will need to be adjusted each year to fiscal year 2027. The proposed budget includes a $2.40 rate adjustment for fiscal year 2024. The city's recently updated storm master plan identified both capital projects and maintenance needs necessary to adequately operate the system. Internal service funds. There are two. There's the Public Works Operations Fund, which will take the place of the Facility Major Maintenance Fund. The Public Works Fund also supports the engineering department. And the Public Safety Fund is dedicated to the construction and repayment of the public safety facility. The city anticipates the completion of this facility in, earlier said mid-2025. I believe that's all correct. The city will continue to use this fund for debt service payment collection and disbursement of the remainder of the debt service agreement. We would like to thank the mayor, city council, budget committee, and all city staff for their support during this process. Respectfully, John Walsh, city administrator, budget officer, Joan Ellis, thank you, as the interim finance director. I think our next item is an orientation and to the budget document and the fund structure. So I pretty much talked about the fund structure in the budget message. Does this work?
Should.
Advance it. Again. So the purpose and role of the budget committee. And I will send out a copy of this, the slide deck, so that you'll have it at the end of the night. So this is just a review of what the budget committee does. And it's a combination of the elected official and the budget committee members. We receive the budget message from the budget officer, review the proposed budget document, and provide the opportunity to comment on the budget. Next, please. Next. So the rest of the budget document, we don't have a table of contents, but it is contains a little about the fund structure. There's a whole description. There's the budget message. There's the continuation of the strategic plan that was done prior year and how and where we're at currently in that strategic plan. And then it'll follow through with fund summaries and department summaries. And so we're going to kind of go by department, and staff will do some short presentations. So our budget assumptions, this is kind of the highlight of where we're at now. So we're at 15% of ending fund balance, where we normally would prefer to be at 20%, which is the policy. So we worked hard to get it to this point. And what we adjusted was we did this revenue enhancement, which is increased general fund services allocations to the tourism fund. And then we're leaving one vacant library technician position to fill. Parks is reallocation of one FTE personnel between parks and recreation. And the other big ones really are in technology. We're reducing some of those costs and deferring things in public works like the mini excavator and a van, deferring some projects in water, and then adjusting what personnel we can. Next. So I thought I got this one. Go ahead. So this is our general fund forecast. And as you can see, the purple lines, as we go along, and so for this year, 2023, 2024, we're at 15% of reserve ending fund balance. And we need to be at 20%. Forecasted for next year, 24, 25, you can see it really drops. So we've got to think about how we're going to adjust. We've got some ideas on so now we'll have our department presentations.
Yeah, thanks. And I'll get started, just to give some order of magnitude, the 20% reserve and how hard your staff has been working on these numbers. We started 20% reserve remit is $1.8 billion is where we started from to try to get back 1.8 million back so that we'd have a 20% reserve. We haven't got that far yet. But that's the difference between the 20 and the 15. So we've been working really hard, combing things, delaying projects, deferring things. There's some rate increases to offset some of the things that some of the projects, but all in all, we're still going to deliver quality services, and it's a deficit, but it's not our policy for general fund. Utilities, when we get into talking about that, utilities are much more healthy than they meet their operating reserves. But I'm going to start off just talking about the
Hang there.
Is the admin and so what goes on in the administration side of things and is the city recorder, human resources, Kathy and Lisa are the ones that operate that. They're over the past year they've centralized recruiting trying to create efficiencies. We have, especially in the rec side of things, we have a lot of people coming on, they're young and they short-time jobs, and there's just a lot of advertising. They bring them on board, let them go, that kind of thing. And it's all good. We're looking at a third-party source to kind of streamline some of that. And human resources is all about that. So communications, Crystal King and Cameron, our communications people, we really punch above our weight when it comes to communications. Cities our size, we have Crystal manages 13 social media platforms. All the things you see, all the Facebook posts, all the information that goes out for the police side of the house, just all of it, the blast, the riverfront communication blogs, constantly sending information to the papers. They're basically several times a week for articles in the paper. no real changes there budget wise. It's chugging along really nicely. It's really important to our community. It's something that we've over the last several years really just doubled down on communication, starting off with a half a person, a half-time effort and made it full-time and really, I think the community really appreciates it and I think your communication's good. People say it's never enough, but it's doing as good as we can with what we have. Finance is also run through administration, finance, utility billing. I don't know if we have specifics. Gloria and John have been helping out with that. We have accounts payable, accounts receivable, our two utility billing specialists. A new person, Jamie Ford, just joined us. Jamie Edwards moved up to the accounts payable, and we hired another Jamie Ford. So we have now two Jamies in the department. So that's government affairs. That's Rachel Berry that we brought on to do communications or just intergovernmental relations. She does lobbying on our behalf. She seeks federal grants, typically from a return on investment, bringing grants to the community. Her many times her salary every year is, really been golden, and it's also just elevated our relationships between our partner organizations, our rising tides kind of thing when we're working with our community partners. Municipal court is our Judge Lindgren, which has been a fantastic hire. We have prosecuting attorneys, Sam Erskine and staff, Messenger and Melanie Payne represent our municipal court. What's new and different, the judge hasn't had a raise since 2018, so she asked for a raise in her contract, and that's reflected. Per the judge's recommendation, it's been really challenging to get public defenders because they don't make they have a per case load and they get like $200 a case, and so they don't really like doing work for cities because it's a lot of paperwork and reporting and back and forth. They want to go to a retainer based, and we've kind of evaluated the highs and the lows with that. We have 3, and we're looking at putting 2 of them on a retainer, so just so we don't lose them. They're keeping them there. So we felt like that was a valuable investment. It seems to be kind of cost neutral given the data that we've evaluated. And Sean was going to be here to talk about recreation, but recreation is something that's been really valued over the last few years. Lots of after school programs, all the programs and activities that kind of run through the recreation program. A lot of the events are, there's sports and the kind of thing. It has a pretty high cost recovery on recreation through fees. Slide related to that.
Yeah, so I think the highlight for Shauna and for the recreation, she's got a lot of programs that she's developing, but those programs won't be launched unless there's the funding resources to provide for those programs. And there's a big grant that she's working on that will be passed through with the school district, and that will provide a really large program that she's working on. But again, the highlight of that is she won't be expanding programs unless she's got the funding resources.
You said really, that's the story in itself, just looking at the revenue flows and the streams coming in from recreation.
So community development is the building and planning department under our organization chart as department of that department. Of that, and Jacob's here, Mike is also here if they want to say words about what you do or. I'll hug the mic. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
You need to drink
a
some.
lot of conventional planning, zoning administration, stuff like that. In many senses, we don't have a dedicated community development director. John fills that role. And I was thinking about this recently. Really, our department, together with our two planners, kind of acts in part as the assistant community development director, helping John out. So we have that element. We have a project management element, grant element, historic preservation element, and a variety of other wonderful fun stuff. And 2.4 FTE is what planning is. So not the biggest department.
As far as building goes, we administer the building codes within plumbing, mechanical, and building codes. And our budget is reflective of the volume of services that we provide throughout the year. In this case, it's a little bit of a reduction because we've seen that permitting. And then just a couple of unique, I guess, not unique, but just some ORSs that go around and OARs that surround the building department administration. And the fees is that we're allowed to collect fees, but those fees that we collect through the building department have to be used for the administration and enforcement of those state building codes. And so they have to be within our division. So that's all it is.
In good years, the program more than covers itself. In other years,
Yeah, and we've had
slightly subsidized.
We've had some good years, including this one, and we anticipate coming in over our budget next year as well.
There's one thing that I need to note that Mike had pointed out to me. We made a Scrivener's error in the proposed budget and the line for professional services. That needs to be 8,000 instead of 6,000.
Page is that?
It is page 34 of the printed document.
I just want to apologize. I thought this was 6 o'clock, not 5 o'clock. I thought it was early.
Here.
I also went to apologize. I thought it was 5:30. I honestly did.
That's what I did last year.
Yeah.
Coming in, so hey, welcome to the club.
I forgot my phone.
Our wonderful library, open 47 hours a week. We see about 20,000, we'll see 25,000 visits, probably more than 25,000 visits by the end of this fiscal year. I gave you a whole bunch of slides and I don't really need, I just wanted hopefully for those to be there for background. So if you could go one. Plan. Perfect. So we are modifying our strategic plan right now, and we just did a big old community survey, and we're going to be pretty solid on these work plan goals. We already have eliminated overdue fines. We did that last year with great public support. We have increased our digital library resources. That's always a challenge because there's a standard 10 to 15% increase every year, but that makes our money pretty tight. The other options, the other items I don't want to focus on too much except sustainable operation of the makerspace staff. We've had 1,000 visits to the makerspace in the last year. It has an enormous impact on our community, business community, individuals. We've got kids coming in, we've got adults, we've got homeschool families that they do something called Camp COVID, where they come every year in the summer and do some programs. Alan Hansen unfortunately is leaving us. Tomorrow's his last day, and he will leave a big hole. We are going to do our best to maintain that program while it's on hiatus. In the meantime, we have lots of other things that that the library is about. If you could go to the next one, please. There we go. So just a quick overview. As I said, our budget increase this year is 15%. That's pretty much across the board increase, cost of living, et cetera. But I do want to focus on facilities maintenance. There's a fairly large increase in facilities maintenance, and then in printed materials and library of things. And then projects and programs, those are all reflective of what we've seen in our surveys, the strategic planning surveys, what our community appreciates about us already and where they want to see us grow. So we're seen as a community center. Certainly, we're a resource for books and other kinds of materials that people come and borrow. We provide projects and programs, and those are always expanding. So we're very proud of what we do. I feel like this budget is modest but powerful. We're leveraging our resources through volunteers. The Friends organization has been very generous. We're collaborating with a lot of community partners like CCMH and Columbia County Health Department to provide resources that aren't thought of as traditional library resources, but are important resources to our community. Thank you.
Brian Grimley, Chief of Police, coming up on 5 years in St. Helens. That's our wonderful slide. Just one, because we have a lot of areas, that we touch in the police department. I want to echo what Mr. John Walsh, our city administrator, said, is that we're not dropping our level of service in the city, and I can speak for all departments. Very proud to work with the men and women of this staff that serve this community. Even prouder about our staff at the police department. So, as it was already touched on, we've already gone through the budget and reduced a few areas. There's a few areas that are going to impact our community for years to come. And we have to be extremely transparent. I know one of the issues is not filling that position. We save money, but it will have ramifications down the road. It's not a dramatic issue, but that's factual. One thing that is constantly increased since my tenure here at 5 years is the level of police service requests and the complexity of the calls. So our officers are busy. I've said this before in a public setting. And I know I'm going to talk about the budget, but it needs to be said. The St. Helens Police Department is not on the front page of local papers. They're extremely professional. They're there to protect and serve, and they do that in the utmost ways with limited amount of resources, and we will continue to do that. So I really don't know what I can tell you other than we will make this work. As far as our budget, we reduced our operating supplies. We do have a couple things in the pipeline that will serve our community better. One being is a new report writing system that will be able to give us the ability to mine data so we can better deploy our resources to actually fix the problems instead of continue to respond to the problem areas in our city over and over again. But we can't do that without data. And then we can break that down into a little bit further. And so that's one other thing. Our body worn cameras. Again, we appreciate the Mr. Walsh and Gloria that support that. One thing in today's policing, we try to be transparent. A body worn camera allows accountability for our officers, transparency for the public, and also legitimacy for the public, so they can see what our officers go through. So we are in the process of replacing all of our body worn cameras. They're outdated. And when technology increases and improves every year, we have to keep up with that technology. So in a nutshell, it's kind of an overview. I can speak to anything specific, whether it be vehicles, operating costs, uniforms. I can answer any questions, or if you have follow-up questions, I'm more than happy to answer those. But the big message here that I want everybody to know, and those watching, it's trying times, but your police officers and your police staff will continue to rise to the occasion, and we will not reduce our service of excellence to our community. They deserve that. So I'll get off my soapbox, but any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Chief. Thanks. I think I'm next.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Gloria. So Public Works, we represent about 39% of this overall city budget with a 31.3 FTEs in Public Works. As most of you already know, we provide the day-to-day services 24 hours to our community through a multitude of divisions within the Public Works, such as engineering, operations, facilities maintenance, parks department, and most recently, the addition of the technology to our Public Works. So just like everyone else, this has been a very challenging financial year. So how do we continue to provide a high level of service to our citizens and work with the resources we have. As you've heard earlier, we worked with the finance division, John Ellis, for the last 6 months. It's been a journey, man. Thank you for all your support during this time. Gloria, welcome aboard, John Walsh. How can we still provide a level of service that is compatible to what we have provided with the resources we have? And some of the challenges we face, just like everybody else, funding, right? We happen to be supported by enterprise funds, which is great. We support the city anywhere and everywhere we can, all divisions, in addition to looking at top priorities when it comes to city infrastructure, right? We continue to strive to really work efficiently with the resources we have. We've done some great work around the city, and some of the great approach for best practices and best project management practices is getting those projects done within budget, scope of work, and a lot of time under a good example I can give you from a current project CIP of this year. We allocated $100,000 for a backup generator for our public works operations. And we got this project done completely, 100% successfully for $10,000. So that difference of $90K, we put back into the budget to support and, cut the losses anywhere else. And then roll over rather than asking for external resources. We've done a lot of deferment for capital improvement projects. Those are projects that are permanent, that add to the city assets. We have a lot of areas that we work in with capital improvement. Streets, sanitary sewer, water mains, drainage system, street striping. So we looked holistically at all the projects we have, and we try to defer the ones that are, not top priority, and focus on the ones that are majors. Also cut a lot of the operating costs from public works. In fact, looking through the budget for this year, we've been one of those divisions that's been doing very well to keep above the 20% threshold for the contingency, and our team also take a lot of pride and accountability for managing our resources and operating supplies. And then, we've cut some of those major costs as well for this coming year, such as a backup that we needed for the last 3 years. We put one position on tree spreading, which we're not going to fill at this. We continue to seek options and grants and ways to support our budget through other resources, other agencies and infrastructure resources available. Yeah, that's kind of nutshell of general idea. We've also worked really hard in our engineering division in the last year to really bring more resources through updating our universal fees, and that's hopefully will get us some supported of the personnel through that division and our projects that we do. And as you all know, most of our work is behind the scene. Unfortunately, we don't get a lot of kudos because all our work happens when everybody's sleeping, everybody's busy. When things are working, we get a call when someone, can take that shower in the morning, or getting clean water for their coffee, or that toilet that you want to flush. So we take a lot of pride in that. And as I said again, we continue to provide a very high level of service to citizens. We have a great leadership that supports that, and we're going to continue to work to find ways to make this work. Thank you.
So forecasting out a little bit, again, talking about our reserves and how the fees and our projects are being affected. So for 2023-24 in the water fund, we're doing well. But we go into 24-25, and the fee structure that was adopted in July of 2022 is not going to sustain it and be able to continue to do projects, those infrastructure projects in 2025 and beyond. So we've got to think about possibly doing another rate study and seeing what we need to adjust there. So that is probably something that we may do this coming year. Again, is do another rate study specifically for water. For sewer, it's operating very healthy. There is loans that will be drawn on for capital projects that are pretty much essential. Those are not deferred so much this year or in the future years because they are so essential. And as you can see with loan and grant financing, it remains healthy. For storm is another, and it's challenging. The storm utility is challenging in a lot of cities. It's hard to see what goes on. That infrastructure, you don't see it very much until you start flooding. And maintaining it and expanding that infrastructure is so it's doing well, and the rates that were adopted again in July 2022 will still help sustain it and do projects up until the 2026-2027 fiscal year that then those projects, actually the projects in, if we put out the projects and in 2027, fiscal year 2027, there's a major project that will drop that fund balance, and you can see it there, and it'll be so we'll probably have to look at how we're going to fund those major projects in that year.
And as Gloria mentioned, those are not special issues to the city of St. Helens. This is very common across a lot of cities of our sizes. Infrastructure is old, and master plans are great to identify those major capital improvement projects, but those are expensive. You're talking about miles of new pipe, old materials. It takes a lot of engineering and design and construction. And as you're all well aware of, costs have increased a little bit in the past few, let's just say. So yeah, we will continue the innovative approach to finding ways to take care of this.
So some of the opportunities that we have and things to think about going forward for keeping a healthy fiscal environment for our city is, for one, revisit funding strategy for the public safety facility. We have a loan or bonds that were sold for financing that project. And so now there will be debt service to provide for that. And at this point, we need to increase that public safety fee up to $10 in order to be able to pay the debt service on that. The other option, and generally the less popular, especially now with other agencies going for tax issues, is to do a general obligation bond, and that is done by vote to the voters, and not as easy to achieve. The next one is to increase the public safety fee and increase the support for the police department operations. And so that would be to add another $2 on that public safety utility fee, to bring it to $12 a month. And $2 of that would go towards operations for the police department. And that would hopefully get us to where we could staff the positions. The third opportunity is to investigate a 5-year option levy. Again, that goes to the voters. Hard to get, even if you do get those 5-year levies, they are they're subject to compression. So other entities that have the permanent rate and then have levies ahead of you, it just keeps whittling away at that levy. So sometimes there's just no guarantee that you'll get everything that you need dollar-wise in order to cover what you want to cover. The fourth one is to investigate a continuation of the parks utility fee. So this is another fee. I know everybody gets fee wary. A parks utility fee would help to maintain and operate the park system. And then the fifth one is to complete an internal service level review for all departments and city buildings. And that would require a consultant and to look at our fees and our organization and see how we could how we can make things a little more efficient, maybe, or what the real value of what services are. So this is an opportunity to receive questions and with questions, and if there's any public comment.
Can you go back to that last slide?
Sure.
So on the first option, is that limited to a certain number of years? If there was going to be a general obligation bond, is it typically like 20 years or 25?
A general obligation bond, it's generally written into, however, it would take the analysis to go out for, we'd have to amortize out what the need is. And then that would be the time limit on it. And so it would.
It could be it could be 30 years, it could be 10 years, it could be whatever is needed.
Right.
And as on the 5-year option, is it only limited to 5 years, or can it be 3 years or 5 or 10 or whatever?
They're generally 5-year, and then, but they can be, you can go again to the voters to have it renewed.
But typically it's set at 5.
Typically it's 5, yes.
And then finally, on the parks fee, how would you charge that? Would it be like a fee to come and pay, or will it be on like your water bill? Or
it's on the water bill, yeah.
Question, back to the 5-year levy. What was the compression comment? Why wouldn't the levy cover a police department if it's really budgeted out and predicted?
Right. So what happens with a limited, there's a term for them, I forget the name of those. Anyway, they are subject to compression, meaning that there's an order of how those property taxes get assessed. So it starts with the permanent rate. So the city has a permanent rate. Probably the fire department has a permanent rate. And then then there's the school. So all of those things get paid first. And then what's left over, you have general obligation bonds. So those aren't subject to a compression. They're a separate assessment. And then once those are paid, then whatever is left over, you go to those 5-year limited obligation bonds. So sometimes there's so many of those out there. So they go by priority or first come, first serve, and those get paid. And so if you're the last one out, there could be not enough left over in that whole assessment to give you the full resources that would cover what that was designed to cover. So it's kind of, it ends up kind of being a waste of the effort that you put into going out for one of those tax bonds.
It's tied to the Oregon regulations, Measure 5 and 50 that set caps and ceilings on. And also it's compact more here because there's one city in the state that gets no property taxes. There's one city that gets, you know, a penny less than we get. And then we're the lowest, you know, so we get, you know, I mean, the city. So that's in essence is.
Yeah, I like to think of it as a bucket, you know,
Yeah.
$10 bucket, and then once it goes, collects over 10, they can't collect it, it doesn't hold any more revenue.
Because there's a cap on what can be totally collected.
And it's broken into two, one for government and one for education.
Sure. So house, on my property tax bill, even if we had, so there's this variety of levies. If there's too many of these collecting money, there's a cap on what, even if the total amount of the levies, so if the amount of the levies exceeds, say the cap is $10, but there's levies out there for collecting $11. I, as a property owner, am just paying that $10 worth, and then the distribution goes first come, first served.
Right.
It's a tie.
It is.
Tie is only so big.
Yep,
And does urban renewal zones affect that as well?
it does.
So just from my understanding, there's next year the jail levy coming on before to be renewed. You got the sheriff's levy asking for more money, and also on the horizon is a CCOM levy for the new radio system. Specific dates, but that's what.
School districts.
Well, I'm talking levies here, not geo bonds. Geo bonds is
Right,
different.
we're talking
That's-
about that 5%.
Right, so you, yeah. So there is a difference between.
Right, so the GO bond
operations.
would not be affected by those limitations.
Okay. Because with the levies, we're not paying off a bond. We're paying directly for operations.
It's only for operations.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Is question. My understanding is they put in a fee to use the electricity on the boat dock, that kind of thing. Not all that long ago. And that is an out of town. I mean, that's where the money is. It's not here in St. Helens, it's out of town. Is there any thought to funding some of maybe the parks or some of it, or maybe even the police of some of the tourists and not hotels only, but some of the parking of the boats or the parking of the cars for some of our tourists? I mean, is there any way to make money off that?
Yeah, we do. I mean, the kiosk that we put in was kind of a response to try to manage the docks better. And that's actually worked pretty quite well. The $15 a night to stay on the boat, $5 more if you want electricity. Those funds go into the park fund already, so that there's some revenue there. It's 20,000 a year, something like that. So, answer is yes, but there's some management and expenses to that too.
Sure.
Offset the.
Sure, I was just curious if there was any way to police the Portland area that comes out here, if we can.
That's actually one of the few was included was to police our docks.
Yeah, okay,
Yes, because it gave us some teeth to actually get neighbor notice. That we're paid to stay after time. Out there.
okay.
Responsible use of the docks was there.
I think last year we talked about a possible gas tax. I think Scappoose charges a gas tax of 2 cents, 3 cents. I think we talked about that last year too as a possibility.
Something that would have to go to voters.
Well, I just know that when we talked about the public safety facility, Years ago, we had an ad hoc committee, and I don't know how many people remember that. It's been 2 or 3 years ago now. And the original price was $7 to $9 to build the police station. So it's not that far off and reasonable to be $10 to get that and build.
My question about that, why is it 3 now then? If it was estimated 7 would be needed, why did we go with 3?
Well, we tried stretching every little bit. The city council did not want to try to raise water rates. Didn't feel that was fair. And we listened to advice of our financial director and thought that we had it there, and we've lost some revenues also.
Yeah, because there have been some changes since then with state. Part of that was based on revenue we were expecting from the state through the cannabis tax, but that was redirected because of measure passed by the P. So anyway, so we lost our share. So that $3, and I was much relieved that it came that, but it was based on some assumptions or projections that now no longer hold true because of changes in the situation, conditions of the economy and the state's shifting of cannabis funds.
If we do go to 10, how long would that need to remain?
Were we projecting probably pretty much for the life of the loan,
Right.
which would be what? The 30-year loan.
Yeah, I believe it's 30.
So a couple parts to that. The immediate need for the coming fiscal year is to service the interest payment that's due on the bonds. And that's going to take about $7 to get there with that. If it's going to be more than that, that could help. Create a reserve in that fund to buffer the increases that we went from 7 to 8, 9 over a couple of years. Want to go straight to 10, and then that gives some capacity to get back less pressure on the general fund, and would help out the reserve balance back up closer to where it needs to be. So,
Does that require a vote? We just raised the fees?
and it's a council action. Yeah.
I think this might be at the time, this might not be the time, but I think it would be important in the future. And if we do that, we continue to look at other additional funding options, like for instance, if the city sell any property, whether or not we might want to dedicate funds for the city from sale of city property to the public safety facility. I think that we should be looking at those other types of things as well. I think right now, yes, looking at increasing the fee makes sense, but I do think it would be important to continue to look at other sources of funding so that we can, I know the fee is flexible, that we can always reduce it. So I'm hoping we have a conversation about some of these other things, other sources of revenue.
And then the initial plan was to have a hybrid of fee and other dedicated revenues. And what we were looking at was the sin taxes, and it's the marijuana tax, alcohol, cigarettes, those revenues. But some of them have reduced, some of them, and frankly, the general fund's just desperate for those revenues. So we've relied on them for years, and we just can't afford to move those out of there to help pay for this facility at this time.
So the fee is to actually pay for the interest on the loan, but that money has not been spent. So where is that money sitting at?
It's sitting in the pool. Investment is
So it's in an investment pool.
it is earning some interest. So
And is it earning more than $7 a month? Yeah.
From
Yeah.
a citizen?
I think it's right now, it's just about 4%. So, yeah, so since the money was held, it's earned, like end of last year, earned $68,000 in interest. And this year it's gonna earn like 300 and something thousand because the interest rate shot up.
So,
Start
But
servicing
that's-
that debt too.
Yeah,
Right.
but, and then also the feds want a piece of that if we don't utilize it quick enough and bend down because of arbitrage. You can't profit on it. And so,
Yeah, so if it isn't used in the construction of the facility, we'll have to pay it back to the investors that bought the bonds.
at an interest.
Yes.
Can the public ask questions?
Yeah, that's the time for that.
I'm just curious about line item, page 24. GF support services, what is that? On page 24, line charges for services, GF support services.
General fund support services is an allocation of administrative staff and expenses. And those are charged out to like the utility funds for sewer storage and paid back to the general fund for those services that the general fund provides.
Somewhere in the budget where people can see what those services, how they're calculated and because it went from 2.646 actual in 2021 to 4.316 proposed 23-24 budget. So that's an increase of 1 point something like that. 1.7.
Can you tell me again what page you're at?
Because I'm on page 24 and I'm not seeing.
I have a page 24 bottom right, and then under charges for services, which is about middle of the page. Okay. And then GF support services. Yeah, there's 1, 2, 3 lines down.
Are you sure you're on 24?
yep.
Okay.
Under charges for services.
Just 24 there.
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't have the same page as you.
Yeah,
yeah.
so let's see.
What's the headline?
I got it. I think I see it. I see it. Yeah, I
Tree here, Steve. It's 24.
this is always at the front, so this is what I have for page 24.
Oh, yeah, he's got very much different. You're
The right book, I think.
So for some of us, it's page 23. So
Well, yeah, there we go.
halfway down in charges for service.
right.
That was my question.
I know.
There's a breakdown where we see kind of a line item breakdown.
I don't believe that we have that in this document, but we can put that as a question to come back with for our next meeting. If there's the desire of the committee to see that.
And then I have another question then. Yeah, I just think we have some comments too. So first questions, right? Then we have comments.
Actually, comments from the public would be great.
Okay. Second question though is at page 40, miscellaneous revenue under 2022 to 2023 adopted. There's a $7 million line item under miscellaneous revenue general.
Right, and that was supposed to be, that's potential loan proceeds, during economic development, right? Probably page
Yeah.
39 for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what we do is now we're breaking out the show as bond proceeds, not as miscellaneous. So that 7 million was anticipated to be bond proceeds. We haven't incurred the expenditures yet, and it's related to, well, I'm not sure, the Business Oregon and the loan that's involved in all the infrastructure down in the downtown waterfront district area for urban renewal. And so we would pay it back.
And then the debt services will kick in from the urban renewal and pay that back.
Right, about 3 years after
Yes.
completion.
Yes.
So I'm just curious, as somebody who looks at balance sheets, is there a reason why debt is characterized as revenue?
Loan proceeds.
It's a requirement by government accounting.
Yes, I will agree with that.
You'll notice that 7 million is not in that.
In this year, because it's part of the 14 million.
I think I saw there was a $7 million, the council recently approved a update on the budget, that $7 million number, and it was probably the same number.
We just, yeah.
You state your name for the
My name
record.
is Steve Toski. So let's see. And then there's also an increase in overtime, it looks like at the beginning. And so why is there an assumption of a increase in overtime?
The overtime was squashed last year, so therefore it wasn't appropriated accordingly. So, you know, to try to encourage, but there's gonna be overtime, especially in police when they're running shorter training and so forth. So, and it was not a reasonable expectation for that to be.
Taken out.
So if you looked at the actuals when we close the year out, you're gonna see it closer to like 350.
Okay.
So.
All right.
And it goes along, if you look back historically, it's
been right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's been going up because of inflation.
So then comments, first I'll make a comment on behalf of the Planning Commission as the chair of the Planning Commission, and that is to encourage the exploration and analysis of adding a planner, to the budget. That is something the Planning Commission discussed last year, and it's something the Planning Commission wanted to bring forward this year. And I know that it's very difficult to try to find a way to justify an additional planner. I run a business, and I've got 25 people that work for myself and our partners in our firm. And I know when good people are being pushed to their limit, let's just say. And I could say that in working with Jacob Gretchen and Jenny Dimshow, both excellent and extremely capable employees, and they are definitely very hard to wear a bunch of different hats and being pulled in a bunch of different directions. The city's getting a lot of benefit from them. I'm thinking that Ms. Dimshow in particular is a very talented grant writer and a very talented grant acquisitioner, if you would. And so if an additional planner were added, she were to just get one grant that she would not otherwise be able to get, that would probably pay for somebody in that resource. So that's something that we would ask this year that the city consider. I know it's not a great time to ask, it never is. So that's my comment on behalf of the Planning Commission. Then I have a comment as a citizen. A couple comments. So, business is a money in, money out situation, and I've had to make really difficult decisions in running our own business when we've run into tight budgets, even sometimes where we are running at a deficit. And it is a time to look very carefully at one's employees, and to make sure that all the employees are actually delivering the services that the company needs them to deliver to the customer. And in this case, it is whether the people who are working for the city, where the citizens are getting the value that they should be getting from the city employees. So in particular, Mr. Walsh has a very difficult job in running the city, but this is an opportunity to look at whether it's time that we make some difficult choices. You would know better than I concerning personnel. Whether, and what I found in running business, if the people go that aren't meeting the expectations, and you get people in that do meet the expectations in their place, that the overall delivery of services of the business improves. And that brings me to the point about taxation. Well, I think the one hesitation that people have on taxation is whether they can get value for the increase in their taxes. And so when we talk about property tax increases, frankly, Oregon's property taxes are incredibly low. I come from California, we had something called Proposition 13 there. In Oregon, there's like Super Proposition 13. The basis of the property and the tax rate doesn't go up even when the property is sold. I think communication and explain to the people in the city the type of services that they're getting is going to go a long way toward having the citizens accept that a tax increase is necessary and reasonable. And that, we have what I hear from people is how great our library is, how great our police are, our modern transportation system. We have a fantastic city here, and it does cost money to run. It's very inexpensive to live here, and a little bit more from everybody I don't think it's going to hurt, but people have to understand that their money isn't going to be wasted. And I think it's a good time to begin that education process. Last but not least, there is a proactive item that I can't say the Planning Commission is going to take up, but we have two proactive items as far as revenue, studying revenue generation. One is the gas tax. When I mention gas tax to anybody, everybody, they bristle at it. And at the same time, though, you pay a gas tax wherever you go practically in the state. Wherever you fill your tank, you are getting a gas tax. And a gas tax is something that it's not that much. People probably wouldn't even notice it was there, and it would generate considerable revenue for the city. So I think education is the key here. You're paying a gas tax in Portland, you're paying a gas tax in Scappoose, you're paying a gas tax probably wherever you drive in the state other than St. Helens. So I think people, I don't even think anything anybody would notice. It's just a matter of saying, look, this is the city we live in. Our city needs more income. We need your help. Plus gas tax also taxes anybody who's driving through the city. So it's actually a way to tax people who do not live here, but are coming through and just happen to need gas. So I'm a big proponent of the gas tax. And last but not least, last comment, thank you for inviting it, is that one of the other ideas that I had on the fees, and this is something that should be studied, is business licensing fees for rentals. So I own some rental properties in town, and I pay a very modest business licensing fee to run my rental businesses. And I don't have a lot of rentals, but it's a very modest fee. And I believe that some study, and I would ask the Planning Commission to do it, and if they don't want to do it, maybe the council wants to take it up. $25 per month per unit charge for a fee, a business license fee on rental units. We have institutional renters here. We've got NOAA that's just, we've had come into our city, 239 units. We have another large apartment complex that is gone in. And so if you if you mathematically look at, if there's 2,000 to 3,000 units in the city, which I think there actually may be more, I'm talking about rental units. And if we did a $25 a month fee, that would be $600,000 increase in fee revenues. If there's 3,000 units, that would be 900,000 increase in rental units. So the landlords may not like it. I'm one of them, but I'm saying that I live here and I appreciate the services that we provide. And so that's definitely something that should be considered, and even raising those fees year in, year out for the next certain number of years, so that at some point we're collecting maybe $35 a month per unit as a condition of doing business in the city as a landlord. That's what it's going to cost you to business license. So that is my comments.
Question on your business license, that proposal was $25 per unit per month, correct?
Correct.
Versus the $20 per year per unit.
Correct. And so, it's not that much. It's really not. And, I own, let's just say I own 10 units. Is it worth that much to me to have my city get the money it needs to do the type of infrastructure changes that we can continue to grow, that our police are effective, that we have our resources in our library that are so critical to our city? People really use that library. It's like a hub of the city. So I think that personally, I would be willing to say okay to that. I'm sure you're gonna get some pushback, but
Estimated units for your numbers, how many did you figure we had here?
I just guessed 2,000, which I think is low. And then I did the number 2,000 and I multiplied that by 25, I multiplied that by 12, and I got 600,000. And then I went to 3,000, same thing. So
You know that number, Jacob?
About 40%.
Yeah, I think we have total, just looking at some of the analysis, 5,300 or something, like total units, or 5,500, something like that.
500 rental units?
No, total units. Total units. Total units that we apply the public safety fee to. $3.
So 5,000 at 20 a month.
Well, that's total. That's total. That's total.
40% would be rentals of that 5,000.
40%.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Cool.
I don't think it's a completely bad idea, but
Big business. There's a lot of big business people that are renting. They're making hundreds and hundreds of $1,000s a month in town. So
I think that would be something maybe to ease into for and explore, I think. We'll pay for some of the police and parks and libraries. How would that work on a nonprofit unit such as the HUD out there? Would that they be subject to that?
That would be an interesting
Yes.
question, yeah.
I say we slug it out with them.
No,
Well,
I'm just curious.
I think they have to pay the current utilities and the public safety fee that's on the.
Yeah, the ADUs, and so the $10, they would have to pay that.
But they're going to be requiring more services, I think the officers will tell you that, if we look at where the calls are going and how the calls are made, just look at the data points. The housing that is here is causing an increase in the services we need to deliver.
Well, that's a big part of our police department increase of that $10 is not just one property, it's actually units. We have it set up in our water department, so we all depend on the police when we want them there. So it's not just one individual property, it's actually the individuals living there that are paying for the services. If that makes sense, yes.
We apply it to public works because I think, when we do all these sewer improvements, it's one of the big things that keeps coming up at the planning commission And so,
That's for our rate study, Steve. We've got that, the council's on top of that, and I think we have that under control right now. I hear what you're saying, but we did actually just increase. And we actually have a loan, and we're actually gonna try leveraging other grants and funding to the tune of a couple $2 million, I think. Oh, yes, but we will currently be watching that. You know, we just had our master plans updated a year ago, and it was a crisis mode, and we reacted to it. The city council did.
one other comment, if I may, and that is, in order to retain good people, you gotta pay good rates. And that's just the business reality these days. It's very expensive. And I gotta go to my clients, I went last year, rate increase. 2 years ago, rate increase. And the reality for business these days is that everybody has such an increased load on their expenses just to get day to day. I think there is potentially some appetite for explaining to people that the city, in order to retain and keep its good people, retain and deliver the services that it is, it's got to get more revenue in some way. So that's my pitch on that. And I'm not even a big tax supporter, believe me, I don't like it, or fee support, but I can see in being involved with the government and the services we do provide as a city.
Well, you know, I mean, these are way bigger cities, but Hillsborough and Eugene, I just talked to the city councilor today from Eugene, and $10 million deficit. It's like, oh my gosh, because I said, ask him to call me tomorrow, because I was helping my daughter buy a car this morning, and that's irrelevant. But I said, and then I got, thought it was 6 o'clock, of course, a budget committee meeting. I'm sure you guys are deep in it. And he said, oh, yes, he expressed that $10 million deficit. So, and I know Hillsborough's doing the same thing. I think inflation has caught up with a lot of people unannounced and PERS and everything that we have to deal with as government entities is tough. So.
Yeah, just health insurance was almost 17% increase.
Did you hear that? Health insurance, 17% increase.
Is there, Jennifer, can you tell if there's anybody on in the audience that wanted to do public comment?
Hasn't been anything in the chat or anything, so if anyone would like to, you could unmute now.
Thank you. So for the budget committee, is there any other questions that you'd like to put out now? And then kind of a check-in on whether you want to continue, you want to take a break, or what would you like to do? At the end of our presentation portion, we are available to continue to go through questions, or if you want to document, you want to take the document home with you, and then send questions to me. And then we, my idea is to have the committee send me your questions, and then I will compile with the help of staff the answers, and we will put those all together, and on our meeting on May 4th, we'll go through all of those questions and answers.
I have one thing. I would like to see what for that meeting would be the $10 public safety fee immediately adopted, you know, or soon, and what that would do to that. How it would look.
Okay. We can run that analysis.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would prefer to be able to take it home and sit and look, yes, rather than continuing any more
I just
discussion.
the opportunities are not part of the budget, so that's why I asked for that. So
Right.
everybody knows.
So
email questions to you or whatever.
Yes, yeah.
That's,
I've got my card here if anybody needs it. Email
I
address
want
on
one of
it.
those because I haven't even got one from you yet, Gloria.
She's got him yesterday.
I did have a question. I was looking back at the budgets for the last 10 years. And noticed that in 2022, the total revenue funds with everything was about 48 million. And in 2023, it went to 87 million. And wasn't sure and haven't looked in it, and this is new to me, so I'm a new guy, but that's a really big increase. You know, it's like an 82% increase in the city's budget in the 1 year period. And I don't know if there's an easy answer to say, oh, well, this is why, or an accounting difference.
So the majority of that would be due to projects, capital projects. There's, you want to talk about?
Yeah, it's the streets and utility project. It was in that budget a little earlier than the money actually hit, and it's a lot of it's urban renewal funded money. There's debt involved with that.
Okay.
So there's a
increase from what it is.
the Riverwalk project is this project with several sewer basin projects.
And that's the year that it hit.
Yeah, right. That's where we put it into the budget, anticipating the expense, but it didn't happen. So the planning process takes a little longer, so that's for carrying it over the next year. And a big difference from last year's budget and this year's budget. You'll see a lot more detail and line items, and what's this? So you can better manage your budget. Understand it.
Notice that.
John Ellis, I see you digging, so do you have any comments on that?
Well, you know, there is this chart on revenues here, but it just compares what last year's adopted, this year's adopted to next year. So it precedes or postcedes what you're looking for is the year before that. So this is page 15, or it might be 16, depending on.
Yeah, I got 150. So
So
trying
it
to
kind of
find
breaks
maybe
it down.
what your specific question is and what page. So we're all gonna be on the same page. Is there a reason why we just miss a page? Because we're a page behind some other books.
We were printing and we corrected some, but we didn't have time to go back and correct. The final book will be correct.
Okay.
Or the page numbers,
Yes.
so yes.
Yes.
There'll be a table of contents.
Yes.
We were producing this document right up to.
So yeah.
Literally crimping them at like 4:45 and running down here. We apologize for the page number.
And I had 3 more charts. Tables.
I have a question, and because I haven't kept up. My understanding is the Holton district had in the taxes, there was a separate, was separated out. And I thought it was urban renewal from a few years ago. Is that in here somewhere or?
It is, it's part of the Urban Renewal Agency, which actually comes clear downtown here. Goes up Old Portland Road, a ways, all the way out St. Helens Street, in Tully Boulevard, down Highway 30 and back down Columbia, or a portion of Old Portland Road, but there is a little gap in between that is not urban renewal. So all those areas are affected by what's called an urban renewal, which freezes the tax base at that time a couple years ago. So it doesn't increase their tax. It just allows us to grab the increase in tax from all the other taxing agencies, which are the schools, the fire departments, the pool, help me out. County, yes. So so it's designed also to spark growth. So anything new, we capture 100% of that within that area. And it's only for 25 years. You can do that through an urban renewal.
And that's its own budget.
So it's not in this.
That's not in here.
Urban renewal budget is not in this.
But some of this budget does reflect the urban renewal.
Right, like the downtown waterfront projects are all gonna be debt finding.
Yes, yes. So, yes.
money we get from that is.
And I know that I think we're actually gonna be offering to a lot of everybody for the League of Oregon Cities putting on an urban renewal.
It's the invite.
Yeah, so you should see the invite.
The same day as our meeting.
Actually, the
Is it really?
actually is the same day, so you're gonna get an invite, whether you're in the planning commission, city council, I think some of the budget committee members, are gonna invite to how urban renewal works. It's kind of, that's, it is on our next budget meeting day, but it's recorded, so you'll be able to go back and look at that.
Yes.
There was a group discount after 6 people is the same price, so we just signed up everybody that might be interested. Figured that was better than nothing, rescheduling.
It's actually very affordable.
Yeah.
Yes, it was worth it. And Elaine Howard does a really good job. She's the one who came to explain to us. And I don't need to go to that because it was explained a couple different times to us when we were adopting it, so.
Yeah, you'll receive a link to that after the 4th of May, and you'll be able to view it at your leisure.
Just a couple more things about urban renewal. This board is the city's budget committee, but it's also the budget committee for the urban renewal agency. So it's kind of a separate hat. It's an independent, and urban renewal agency is set up on a biannual budget, so this is an off year for the budget. And if we were going to extend any money out of the urban renewal agency budget, we would have to meet and do that
With all of us.
off in the year, but we're not planning to do that at this point. So it's in a.
We have a very good loan from Business Oregon.
Yeah, well, it's an accumulation phase, and it's, it's all about servicing the depth of the riverfront. It's a priority here.
And there's only one urban renewal zone within the city.
Yeah. But you will meet in future years to add on as urban renewal agency.
But that's a good question because some areas do have more than one urban renewal, so yes, that's a great question, Brady.
Any other questions? If there are any questions for those that are online?
Again, I apologize for being late. It's not like me to be late to a meeting.
My apologies as well. I got here before 6.
So Claire?
Claire has stepped out, I believe.
So
Okay.
pass the torch.
So this,
A motion for adjournment?
it needs to be stated to adjourn and for re-adjournment with a date certain, date and time certain of May 4th at 5 p.m.
I make a motion that we adjourn to a date noted May 4th, 2023 at 5 p.m.
Second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?